Hi everyone, a very good morning to all of you. I hope my audio and video is clear. Please let me know in the comment section whether everything is clear or not so that we can have the class in a smooth and continuous manner without any disruption. I hope all of you are doing well, right? And good morning, Bhakti, Hema, Akanksha, Ravi. Is everything clear? All right, that's great. I hope all of you are doing well. I hope you guys are studying. I hope you guys are reading the newspaper on your own as well. I welcome you to this live mint analysis. We do this every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 8 a.m. Right? Good morning, Tanmay. Chalo, let us begin with our session. And before that, if you want to download the YouTube class PDF, you can do it from the Oliveboard app. Just go to the courses section. There's going to be a separate YouTube class PDFs folder. You can download it from here. All right? Chalo, let's take a look at what are we going to do today. What all are we going to study today? Firstly, we're going to talk about capital expenditure that government is going to provide around 12 trillion capital expenditure because private sector is still shy. मतलब कि private sector is not doing that much expenditure which is required. That is why the government is focusing on capital expenditure. तो क्या reasons है? Everything we are going to understand. फिर आ जाता है इंडिया रीसेट्स क्वालिटी नॉर्म्स अमिड माउंटिंग डब्ल्यूटीओ स्क्रूटनी. तो यहाँ पे क्वालिटी कंट्रोल ऑर्डर्स की बात हो रही है. वी गोइंग टू डिस्कस व्हाट दिस इज. Now banks are now the banks they can also set their own pension funds. पहले क्या है कि pension fund सिर्फ और सिर्फ जो pension related जो organizations है वही पेंशन को प्रोवाइड कर सकती हैं स्पेशलाइज जो पेंशन में है. लेकिन अब द बैंक्स कैन आल्सो प्रोवाइड पेंशन फंड्स देयर ओन स्पेशलाइज्ड पेंशन फंड्स. सो दैट वी गोइंग टू सी इन डिटेल. Then governments need seed push to revive cotton lift farm productivity. तो यहाँ पे cotton को lift off करने के लिए, cotton productivity को improve करने के लिए we have this article over here. And here we are talking about new seed push. That means we are talking about HYV seeds here, high yield variety seeds. Apart from that, there are a few fact based news and we are going to do some MCQs also at the end. Alright? Okay? For all of you, I'm also sharing my Telegram handle over here. If you guys want to connect with me beyond these sessions, Mannat Educator is my Telegram handle. Okay? You can connect with me over here. Chalo, first article over here. Government wastes 12 trillion capital expenditure. Capital expenditure ko we write as capex. As private sector is still shy. Private sector still shy means private sector is not, putting in a lot of money in capital expenditure, and that is why the government is focusing on that. All right, ठीक है. So now around 12 trillion capital expenditure in the upcoming budget. So we have been seeing from the past few days कि budget से related क्या upcoming budget में क्या क्या हो सकता है. What are the going to be the focus areas. We discuss about that as well, है ना. Why are these articles important? Because बाद में these are going to be very it is going to be very easy for you to remember the budget and economic survey वाला, because that is very important from your exam point of view, है ना. So how much is the capital expenditure going to increase? Approximately 7%. The capital expenditure is going to increase, and who's going to do that? The public sector is going to do that. Government is going to do that because private sector capital expenditure is weak. Okay, so public led growth we are going to see. Even though there is global economic uncertainty, there are issues at the global level, there are geopolitical risks. We know what all is happening now. The US has attacked Venezuela also, and I hope you guys are following that news as well. We have volatile financial conditions as well. Even though we have these kind of situations, but still our public led growth is quite high, है ना. Plus, this capital expenditure is supported by high GST and income tax collections. We know that GST rates have been rationalized, income tax rates have been rationalized. We have seen this, है ना. Improved utilization of existing funds. जो अभी के funds है वो बहुत अच्छे से utilize हो रहे हैं. Savings on revenue expenditure. And what are going to be the focus areas under your capital expenditure? Roads and highways, railways, defense and urban infrastructure. देखो, there are two types of expenditure. One is your productive expenditure and second is your unproductive expenditure. Why are we studying about capex or capital expenditure? Is because that comes under your productive expenditure. Why? Because this is going to give you long term gains and not just short term gains, right? So whenever we do capital expenditure, it is considered as a productive expenditure, which is very important for long term and which is a very good thing. है ना? ठीक है. So, since pandemic, India's growth strategy has relied heavily on government-led capex. अब we are seeing that private sector is still shy. Why is private sector still shy? And the major reason was the COVID-19 pandemic. After that, the major role is played by the government. यहाँ पे I want to make a very important. I want to use a very important word over here, which is counter cyclical policy, counter cyclical fiscal policy. See, there is something known as cyclicality of fiscal policy. Who is going to tell me in the comment section that what is the meaning of cyclicality of fiscal policy? All those who have studied from me know what is the meaning of cyclicality of fiscal policy. Under cyclicality, there are two types. One is your counter cyclical fiscal policy, and one is your pro cyclical fiscal policy. Who is going to tell me what are these two words? What is the meaning of cyclicality? Why am I asking is because here we have COVID pandemic, and because of this COVID pandemic, private sector had taken a step back, but the government the government sector focused on increasing the capital expenditure, or you can say overall expenditure. What kind of fiscal policy is this based on your cyclicality of fiscal policy? That is my question to all of you over here. Here I am going to clear a very important concept for all of you. Good morning, Sureka. Tanmay Singh, pro and counter cyclical. Pro cyclical fiscal policy and counter cyclical fiscal policy. Government spending is related to the business cycles. Very good, Hema. So, when your government expenditure and taxes are increased or decreased on the basis of what? On the basis of the business cycles that are going on, that is known as cyclicality of fiscal policy. I hope you know what are business cycles or trade cycles. The fluctuations in the economy, the economic fluctuations that hamper the smooth flow of the economy. That is what is known as business cycles. है ना? So, cyclicality of fiscal policy means that your fiscal policy decisions are taken on the basis of the business cycles. Now, on the basis of business cycle, it can be of two types. It can be counter cyclical fiscal policy, it can be pro cyclical fiscal policy. है ना? Now, what is this? Pro cyclical means जैसे जैसे your business cycles are performing. For example, you are in the boom period, or you are maybe in the trough period, or maybe you are in the recessionary phase, है ना? Or you're in the recessionary phase, or you are in the depression phase, or you are in the recovery phase or expansion phase. Based on these business cycles, when you are moving in the same direction, when you move in the same direction as the business cycles, that is known as pro cyclical fiscal policy. For example, what happens is when there is a recessionary phase, usually what happens is when there is a, if we talk about us, whenever there is a recessionary phase, whenever there is some geopolitical risk, whenever there is some problem in the economy, economic fluctuations in the economy, what is our behavior? We try to, for example, there's a recessionary phase. What do we try to do? We are going to hold our money, we are not going to invest. कोई भी अगर unprecedented situation आ गई, what are we going to do? We are going to hold our money, we will refrain from investing. That is something that is known as a pro cyclical policy. That means we are going according to the business cycles. When there is boom in the economy, when there is expansion in the economy, then what is our behavior? We'll say, wow, we are getting good returns, I am going to invest my money in the economy. That also happens in the stock market. That is our behavior. That is why stock market sometimes crashes and sometimes it goes to the highest of peaks. That is your pro cyclical policy. If the government also follows this scenario, कि ठीक है, when there is recession and depression, we are going to hold our money, government will also not invest, and in the boom period, then we are going to invest more and more. If the government is also doing that, that is known as pro cyclical fiscal policy. But the other scenario, if in case When there is a recessionary period, then the government is increasing the expenditure. Or if there is a downturn in the economy, if there is any geopolitical risk in the economy, private sector though will obviously, we individuals or private sector will obviously not increase the expenditure. We are going to hold our money. But if the government does the opposite, that when there is a downturn, then it is going to increase its expenditure and try to boost the economy, try to increase demand, that kind of a policy is known as counter cyclical fiscal policy, when you are going against the business cycles. That is known as counter cyclical fiscal policy. I hope that this is clear to all of you. Now, I want you guys to tell me that I have explained you what is the meaning of counter cyclical fiscal policy and pro cyclical fiscal policy. Now, tell me that if I talk about this COVID-19 pandemic, and when the government has increased the capital expenditure and the private sector is still shy, what kind of a policy is this? Is it a pro cyclical fiscal policy or is it a counter cyclical fiscal policy? I have this question from all of you. If you guys have understood what is the meaning of cyclicality of fiscal policy and the types, which is your counter cyclical fiscal policy and your pro cyclical fiscal policy, if you guys have understood this, you will be able to answer this question. Another question I have is, what do you think is better? Is your pro cyclical fiscal policy better or is your counter cyclical fiscal policy better based on what we have studied today? Good morning, Jaya. Yes, this kind of a policy, when during a COVID 19 pandemic, when everybody reduced their spending, everybody controlled their investment spending, consumption spending, everybody controlled. In that case, government took a step and tried to revive the economy. है ना? Tried to revive the economy by increasing the expenditure so that aggregate demand increases. That is how we were able to come back to the normal times after COVID. Absolutely correct. Counter cyclical policy is a better policy, and in India, we follow the counter cyclical policy only. We follow the counter cyclical fiscal policy. This is the static portion that you have to cover from your this particular topic. Counter will slow down effects during the session and can be used for controlling inflation during the other periods. Absolutely correct, Tanvi. Fine, I hope this is clear. So, public capital expenditure, it is seen as a tool to stimulate demand, build productive capacity, signal policy confidence. Okay? Excessive reliance on public capital expenditure raises concerns. The problem क्या है? That the problem is of fiscal sustainability. कि अगर government increases the capital expenditure beyond a particular limit, it will hamper the fiscal sustainability. Fiscal sustainability in the sense, if the expenditure is greater than the receipts, then it is going to create a deficit. So this is the concern. But if you see that the deficit is going to be right now, but in the long term it is going to give us benefit only. है ना? Capital expenditure is basically expenditure on infrastructure, roads and everything. Okay, so this is a very important thing. Private sector shy, I hope you've understood. Why? Because after the COVID-19 pandemic, plus there have been a lot of issues like global slowdown, high borrowing cost, and capacity utilization is not uniform, uncertain external demand. Because of this, these private sector is not investing much. Then there was this term mentioned, crowding in. यहाँ पे in this, it has been written, the word used over here, that despite strong asset creation in recent years, policymakers believe public investment still needs to crowd in private investment. What happens is, what is the meaning of crowd in? See, there are two words over here which is very important that you need to understand. One is your crowding out effect and one is your crowding in effect. Okay, these two words have been mentioned over here. Does anyone know what is the meaning of crowding out or crowding in effect? What these two terms are mentioned over here. Why do I explain you the terms or some important things in between is so that when you write your answers, for example, in your descriptive answer writing, if you write your answers, therein you can add up these points and mention in your answer. These points can then be written. Okay, fine. Chalo. So crowding out effect. What happens is when government tries to increase its expenditure, maybe government does not have maybe government does not have that much money in their through their expenditure, or through their revenue sources. They don't have enough expenditure. So usually what do they do is that if they want to increase the expenditure in the economy, what are they going to do? They borrow from the market, they borrow from the public, they borrow from the commercial banks, they borrow from the nation or from outside, and then they invest in the economy. ठीक है, they invest in the economy. अब देखो, when government is also going to, this is the pool of money which is available for lending by the commercial banks, financial institutions and all. If the government is going to borrow money from this pool, and the private sector also has to borrow money from this pool, because this is the only pool of funds available. So because government is trying to focus on fiscal expansion, because government is trying to focus on increasing the the expenditure, because of that what is happening is that private sector ke liye funds available are less. So funds available for the private sector reduce. What does it mean? That there is a crowding out effect. This is known as crowding out effect, when because of a fiscal expansion or because of an expansionary fiscal policy, the private sector is not able to do enough investment. That kind of a situation is known as crowding out effect. The opposite of crowding out effect is crowding in effect, wherein private investment increases. So, if you see here, the statement written here is that policymakers believe public investment still needs to crowd in private investment. That is why private investment is still shy. ठीक है? So, I hope that this concept is clear to all of you. ठीक है? Fine. So, here what all things are important that we have discussed. Firstly, what is the meaning of capital expenditure? Why capital expenditure is important? Because it is a productive expenditure. So we saw the difference between productive and non-productive expenditure. Then we saw the difference between crowding out and crowding in effect. And I hope you guys have understood the meaning of crowding out and crowding in. Then we discussed about cyclicality of fiscal policy, and we also discussed about counter cyclical and pro cyclical, with example mentioned over here of COVID. We also saw that this COVID-19 may, when the government increased the expenditure, that is an example of counter cyclical fiscal policy. है ना? I hope this is clear. Which one is better? Counter cyclical fiscal policy is better. So these are the concepts that we have done in today's session in the first article. Fine, I hope this is clear. Then comes your next article, which is that India resets quality norms amid mounting WTO scrutiny. Now, what this news is, let's talk about this. Here, I am going to give you a homework. I am going to give you a homework here. What is the homework? We have World Trade Organization. You are going to, if you know right now, where is the headquarter of WTO? What are the functions of WTO? ठीक है, what is the role of WTO? Role of WTO in India? What are the agreements under this World Trade Organization? When was this formed? Which was the previous organization? In which round was WTO formed? This is your homework. You are going to read about this. All those who have not covered this topic with me in your paid batches, we are obviously going to do this soon, but take a look and read about it a little. Okay, fine. World Trade Organization. Fine. So here let's talk about the article now. What is this article? That India is recalibrating the quality control order regime. What are quality control orders? Let's try and understand that. See, we have Bureau of Indian Standards. We have this organization, Bureau of uh, uh, Bureau of Indian standards, है ना? They provide certain standards. They provide certain standards to maintain the quality of products. To maintain the quality of products. कि अच्छा, the product's quality should be this in this manner. So for the consumer, so that the consumers receive good quality products. So these standards or orders are released by BIS. Now we have seen in the previous live mint analysis class also that that a lot of quality control orders had been released by BIS, but it was very difficult to implement it. Plus, there were problems, and that is why what did the government do? Government took back these quality control orders. है ना? यही देखा था हमने. So India is recalibrating its quality control order regime कि कैसे how we can comply with the international standards because WTO is increasing its scrutiny. WTO has an increased eye. It is looking over our quality control orders. It is looking over our country a lot. ठीक है, so government has relaxed several quality control orders, है ना? अच्छा, WTO की scrutiny क्यों है? Why is WTO scrutinizing? That we are going to understand. First, let's read this. ठीक है? Government has withdrawn some quality control orders, especially in chemicals and industrial inputs. ठीक है? We are going to understand that why this is important and why WTO is scrutinizing. So basically, the mandatory quality control orders or the norms that India had passed, है ना, we are changing that regime. We are changing that regime. Why? Because we want to basically comply the quality norms with actual testing and laboratory capacity कि हमारी capacity कितनी है, what is the actual testing चल रही है, कैसे चल रही है, phased implementation कैसे करना है, how to in the phased manner implement all of these quality control orders, how to justify the regulatory factors and all, है ना? Now, what was the problem? What was the problem? Now we've understood that what quality control orders are. Key to ensure the quality standards and all. Then what is the problem? Now trading partners went to WTO and they said that there is a huge problem because this is creating a non-tariff barrier which hinders trade. See, there are two types of barriers. When we want to restrict the imports, when I want to restrict the imports, what I do is there are two ways. Either I can put direct tariffs or I can focus on non tariff barriers, है ना? Tariffs is directly मैंने tax लगा दिया, है ना? Like that. Non tariff barriers are other ways how I can restrict imports from outside. Now these quality control orders का क्या था कि हमने ये quality control orders लगाए, so only we will be able to import only that kind of material which satisfy these quality control orders. Now this was restricting trade. We started to restrict a lot of imported materials. But here was the problem that MSMEs, especially in the country, they import a lot of raw materials. They import a lot of raw materials. ठीक है? So if non-tariff barriers are put forth, if non-tariff barriers are there, we will not be able to import raw materials. Plus, those countries which used to export to us, the raw materials which they used to export to us in India, they are also going to face a problem. So they went to WTO कि यार, this is like a non-tariff barrier which is hindering international trade. That is why this news is important. Okay, so number of products under quality control orders fell from 761 to 736 because government started withdrawing these. Okay, fine. And we are going to notify 12 new Indian standards by November. And Niti Aayog led committee had earlier recommended easing these quality control orders, and that is what we are doing. ठीक है, so basically we wanted to expand these quality control orders to improve product quality, protect consumers and all, but these acted as non-tariff barriers which created a problem. So WTO is that is by scrutinizing. So I hope this is clear that what quality control orders are. These are BIS standards mandatory, है ना? And if you're not compliant with this can really impact the manufacturing imports and all. ठीक है, so I have basically explained you everything. ठीक है, so you can read all of this. ठीक है, I hope this is clear. A crowd-in is when private players pull out money from pool. Crowd out when government pull out money from pool for disbursement. Ravi, I have already explained you crowding in matlab crowding out matlab ki when from the same pool of money, government is also taking the money, borrowing the money, and private sector is also borrowing the money, right? So because the government sector is borrowing from here, so less money is left for the private sector, and that is why investment reduces. That is crowding out, and the opposite of this is crowding in when private investment increases. ठीक है? हाँ भक्ति, headquarter is in Geneva, Switzerland. Very good. WTO headquarter is in Geneva, Switzerland. Absolutely correct. GATT was the GATT was the previous organization. GATT में there was this round known as Uruguay round. In Uruguay round, this WTO had been formed in 1995. ठीक है? Is this news related to retail sector trying to raise export quality over quantity? Yeah, this news was related to the quality control orders which have been put by Bureau of Indian Standards, but this was creating a non-tariff barrier. That is why WTO was scrutinizing, and now the government has rolled back these quality control orders, and we are going to bring in new quality control orders, which is going to be okay with everyone, like that. Fine, I hope this is clear. Next news is that banks can set up own pension funds. Banks can set up their own pension funds now. So now this PFRDA, Pension Fund Regulatory and Development Authority, it has given in principle approval to allow the scheduled commercial banks to set up pension funds under the national pension system. So now pension funds can be set up in the under the national pension system by the scheduled commercial banks. ठीक है, by the scheduled commercial banks. Fine. ठीक है, what is the aim? We want to widen the access to pension products. Ab majorly what is the thing over here is that these banks, they already have a customer base. बैंक्स के पास ऑलरेडी एक कस्टमर बेस है. they have already made that kind of a you can say they already have a customer base, plus there is trust and all also within the banks. So now in the banks, these banks can also provide their own pension funds. That is what this news is about. ठीक है, so banks will be allowed to sponsor pension funds directly instead of routing through separate asset management companies. अब पहले क्या है, banks will be allowed to sponsor pension funds directly. पहले they had to do it through the asset management companies. पहले क्या scenario था कि these banks they had to route through the asset management companies, ये बैंक्स हो गए, एंड देन प्रोवाइड पेंशन फंड्स. तो ये फालतू का इंटरमीडियरी बीच में बन रहा था. तो नाउ दीज बैंक्स कैन डायरेक्टली इंट्रोड्यूस दीज पेंशन फंड्स. दैट इज व्हाट इज द न्यूज अबाउट ओवर हियर. फाइन. ठीक है, so this can be asked in your examination in the form of MCQs and all. Now who is going to be eligible, which bank is going to be eligible to provide pension funds? ऐसा नहीं है कि हर कोई बैंक will be eligible. It is going to be based on net worth, market capitalization, prudential soundness. इन सब के ऊपर it is going to be dependent कि which commercial bank will be able to provide these pension funds and all. ठीक है, fine. So that is why these banks and all, they are saying कि अच्छा इससे तो limited bank participation ही रहेगी, like that है ना. So current requirement, what is the current requirement is that if a bank has the assets under management, what is AUM? Assets under management. कितने उनके assets हैं that they are managing. If it is 50,000 crore or more, only then they will be able to provide pension funds to the people. I hope this is clear. So what is the threshold over here? 50,000 crore assets under management. So only well capitalized banks, those who have enough capital, they are permitted to enter this pension fund space, not just everyone. Now why is the government allowing this? Because pension penetration is very low in the country. Except for the government employees, government वालों का तो ठीक है, चल रहा है. But despite that, है ना, despite that, if I talk about the other sectors of the economy, if I talk about the unorganized sector, the private sector, वहाँ पे the pension penetration is quite weak. ठीक है, plus NPS relies heavily on distribution reach, trust in the financial institutions, and obviously we have good amount of trust in the banks. And if banks have large customer base, they have strong distribution network, so it is going to become very easy for them to disburse their pension funds. No, see, Ravi, the threshold here is given 50,000 crore asset under management. So any commercial banks, here it has been specifically written scheduled commercial banks only. Okay, Ravi, only scheduled commercial banks. Here, can anyone tell me what is the difference between scheduled commercial banks and non-scheduled commercial banks? This one word, scheduled commercial banks, have been mentioned over here. My question is that what is the difference between scheduled and non-scheduled commercial banks? Any idea? Any idea? Okay, so basically that is why because of this low penetration, that is why now we are allowing these scheduled commercial banks to provide the uh, uh, pension funds. Okay? So NPS, I hope you know, the National Pension System, which is a defined contribution scheme and a pension system wherein contributions are invested. Whatever you are contributing, the money you are contributing, these are invested in the market, and you get the returns. PFRD is the authority which regulates this, and so that you have a retirement income security, we have this national pension system. I'm also giving you a homework here. You're going to check out the difference between old pension system, the national pension system, and the unified pension system. Okay, very very important. This difference is very important. I want you guys to check it out. Comes into second schedule of RBI. Scheduled commercial banks are mentioned in Schedule 2 of the RBI Act. Absolutely correct. Banks that come under Schedule 2 of RBI Act. Very good. Very good. Hema, Jayat, uh, Tanishq, Six Sense. Absolutely correct. So, देखो, scheduled commercial banks are those banks, the list of which has been mentioned in the second schedule of the RBI Act of 1934. Of RBI Act of 1934. That is the scheduled commercial bank. Non-scheduled commercial banks which are not a part of the second schedule. Which are not a part of the second schedule. Ab second schedule mein, it has been written in the second schedule means there is certain criteria that you have fulfilled. That is why you are in this schedule. That is why only scheduled commercial banks can set up these pension funds. Okay, so we know that these why these banks are allowed pension funds now, because of their trust advantage and everything, है ना? And prudential norms, why do they matter here? Because pension funds, they manage long term household savings. That is why prudential norms का क्या मतलब है, when you are thinking about the long term over here, है ना? So because these are long term household funds, that is why they need trust in the financial institutions. That is why we are focusing on scheduled commercial banks only. ठीक है? Next, government's new seed push to revive cotton, lift farm productivity. So now, what is this basic news? I'm going to give you a crux before we dive into the details. Around 185 new high yield variety seeds, HYV seeds. You remember we talk about HYV seeds when we study about green revolution, है ना? Right? So around 185 new HYV seeds, we can see that these have been released, especially to boost cotton productivity, to increase farm productivity. What are these HIV seeds? These are those kind of seeds specially made, है ना, which provide good amount of yield, basically जो बहुत अच्छी yield provide करते हैं. Those are HIV seeds. ठीक है? So on 1st Jan, government released 185, approximately 185 new HIV seed varieties. ठीक है? What are the crops covered? Rice, maize, cotton, millets, pulses, oilseeds, sugarcane. What all are included? These. ठीक है? Objective is because we want to increase the agriculture productivity. ठीक है? Fine. And there are some cotton seeds from around 2 dozen of approved varieties. There are around 2 dozen of approved varieties of cotton seeds. ठीक है? And these are for major cotton growing seeds. What is important here? That which are the major cotton growing states here. You have to remember which are the major cotton growing states. Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, Maharashtra, Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, Karnataka, Punjab and Haryana. Fine. And new BT cotton varieties. What is BT cotton? This is a genetically modified crop. व्हाट इज अ जेनेटिकली मॉडिफाइड क्रॉप? जिसकी हम जीन्स, जैसे हमारे अंदर जीन्स होती है, जीन्स के अंदर डीएनए होता है, हम डीएनए को कट करके वी मॉडिफाई दिस डीएनए टू हैव द डिजायर्ड रिजल्ट्स, दैट इज नोन एज genetically modified crop. That is what bt cotton is. So we have bt2 hybrid, that means we have bt cotton. Now we have the second version of this bt cotton. ठीक है? What is important, another thing important here is that India is the second largest cotton producer globally after China. You have to remember these facts are very important. Directly in the MCQ format, statement based questions mein this can be asked, that India is the second largest cotton producer globally after China. ठीक है, fine. Majorly cotton में what are the problems? Pest attacks and all, input costs are increasing, yields are very stagnant, and that is why we have brought these HIV seeds. So productivity growth is very important because we want to improve we have to meet the rising food fiber demand, reduce import dependence, stabilize farmer incomes, है ना? And seed quality is a very important factor, cost effective factor. ठीक है, so we've brought in seeds, these HYV seeds, because they are going to increase the productivity, they are going to increase the yield. That is why we have these HYV seeds. What is BT2 cotton? I hope you know this is Bacillus thuringiensis genes. These are genes which have been modified. ठीक है, modified for the desired properties. ठीक है, and these majorly what is the problem is that these GM crops, they face a lot of problem, policy sensitivity, regulatory scrutiny, and that is why we have brought certain changes. Cotton is very important because it is a major cash crop. ठीक है, I hope this is clear to all of you. Then next news we have is December manufacturing growth falls on slower output and sales. So यहाँ पे we have the performance of the manufacturing sector. Here what is going to be important is the purchasing managers index. What is the meaning of this purchasing managers index? This managers index, purchasing managers index has, according to this index, the December manufacturing growth has slowed down. What is this PMI? PMI is nothing. But what we do is we conduct a survey. What do we do is we conduct a survey of whom? We conduct a survey of the purchasing managers, the businessmen, you can say. We ask them, Kiar, what do you think? How is the manufacturing sector going to perform? Do you think there is going to be expansion, or do you think there is going to be contraction? So we do a survey of these people. Based on that, we find values. If the value is greater than 50, this indicates that there is going to be expansion. If the value is less than 50, it is going to indicate contraction. If the value is equal to 50, this means that we are going to stay where we are, that is neutral as of now. PMI is calculated for both the manufacturing sector as well as the services sector. ठीक है, please note this thing over here. ठीक है, I hope PMI is clear. Purchasing managers index. ठीक है, if your value is greater than 50, अब देखो जैसे if your value is say 56, say value has reduced from 56 to 54, what does this indicate? This means that expansion is still happening. Expansion is still happening, but the rate has slowed down. That is what we are going to see here. So if you see here, what is written here? PMI falls to 55. It is still greater than 50. है ना? It is still greater than 50. So this means there is still expansion, though the rate has reduced. ठीक है, the rate has reduced here. So PMI fell to 55 in December from 56.6 in November. So 56.6 it has become 55, but it is still greater than 50, which is a positive thing only. It is still expansion, only the rate of expansion has slowed down. So this is the weakest improvement. Slowdown is because of slower growth in output and moderation in sales. Sales थोड़ी सी कम हो गई and output has slowed a little. ठीक है, fine. PMI though remained above average, 86, 54.2 above average, so it is still good. ठीक है, it's not a problem. ठीक है, so PMI is what? It is a forward looking indicator कि हम बता रहे हैं कि अच्छा future में what do we think is going to happen. ठीक है, fine, right? So above 50 expansion, below 50 contraction. ठीक है सर, एंड इट इज द रेट ऑफ एक्सपेंशन कि बस पेस उसकी स्लो हो गई है. फाइन. व्हाई डोमेस्टिक, नाउ डोमेस्टिक डिमांड इज एक्टिंग एज अ कुशन ओवर हियर. ठीक है, strong consumption and government spending is good, which is creating which shows that still there is greater than 50 manufacturing growth. Fine. So these were your detailed articles. Now we have a few fact-based news which you're going to cover. For example, India's gross GST collection is at 1.75 trillion in December. Sometimes directly in your MCQs, such kind of statements can be formed. Okay, so integrated GST has showed a near 20% annual growth to 51,977 crore in December. I am giving you homework here. You are going to read about GST and the types over here. That we have central GST, we have state GST, we have integrated GST, and we have UT GST. What is the difference between the two? Who collects the tax? Whether that tax is distributed among center or state or not. For example, if I talk about central GST, this is collected by the central government. SGST is collected by the state government. The central government, what it collects, it is not distributed with the state government. State government, what it is collecting, will not be distributed with the central government. Integrated GST mein central government will collect the tax, but central government is going to share the GST with the state government. ठीक है? UT GST is when the UT is collecting the GST tax, है ना? And it is not sharing it with the states or the central government. I hope this is clear. ये types आपको समझने हैं. Try to understand the different terms, like we have GST network, we have HSN code. Try to understand certain terms which are related to GST. This is your homework again over here. Fine. ठीक है, तो यहाँ पे we have seen a 20% annual growth in this integrated GST, IGST, and India's gross GST collection at 1.75 trillion. This you have to remember. Then rupee falls 10 paise, ends at $89.98. 89.98 per dollar. Here, what is important is the concept of depreciation and concept of uh, uh, no. UT GST is collected by the UT. The UT, for example, we have Delhi as the UT. It is going to collect, and that is going to be utilized in the UT itself. ठीक है? Fine. Okay. 6 cents. We have depreciation and appreciation over here, which is important, right? And depreciation के साथ we need to understand devaluation also, and appreciation के साथ we have to understand revaluation. ठीक है? Say I'm going to take an example to explain you what is the meaning of depreciation over here. Say $1 is equal to rupees 80 right now. And now $1 is equal to say 89.98. Let's take it approximately as rupees 90. What does this show? Pehle, these Americans, they were able to buy 80 rupees worth of goods with $1, but now they are able to buy with the same US dollars 90 rupees worth of goods. That means now इनको सस्ता पड़ रहा है. What does this show? That value of rupee is declining. Value of rupee is declining. We have more rupees available here now, less of dollars over here now. Value of rupee is declining over here. Now in this case, what is going to happen? That these Americans, they are going to import more from us. That means exports from India will increase. But yeah, this is the good thing, because we know that aggregate demand is equal to C plus I plus G plus X minus M. So if your net exports increase, then your aggregate demand will increase and your GDP will increase, your national income will increase, economic growth will increase. So this is the positive. है ना? But what is the problem then? Value of rupee is still declining over here. Value of our currency is still declining in this case. है ना? It is still declining. That means now what is the major problem is that our imports are going to become costlier. है ना? Our import bill will increase. Our import bill will increase, which is a problematic thing here. है ना? Because and India is highly dependent on imports for very very critical minerals and all also, like rare earth metals, coal, oil. है ना? We import so much. So if our import bill will increase, our forex reserves will also decrease, which is going to be a problematic thing. So depreciation up to a certain level is good, but not beyond that. The difference between depreciation and devaluation is that depreciation happens in a flexible kind of an exchange rate system when we leave everything to the market forces of demand and supply. Devaluation used to happen in the fixed kind of exchange rate system wherein the government used to deliberately devalue the currency or reduce the value of currency to boost exports. Appreciation, on the other hand, is the opposite of depreciation. Pehle 1 US dollar was is equal to rupees 80. Now 1 US dollar is equal to rupees say 70. Now what has happened over here is that these Americans now they will be able to purchase less goods with the same amount of money, which is a so this is going to reduce our exports, but this is going to increase our imports. Why is it going to increase our imports? Because we can pay less amount of money to get 1 US dollar now, है ना? So in this case our imports will be greater than exports, even though the value of our currency is increasing over here. The positive thing is that value of our currency is increasing, but the problematic thing is that if our imports are greater than exports, this is going to lead to a trade deficit in your balance of payments. अच्छा, depreciation is, sorry, Ravi, depreciation, we are not talking, that is not, wear and tear is not depreciation here. Here we are talking about depreciation of currency over here. ठीक है? Appreciation and depreciation of currency, not that wear and tear wala. Okay? Okay, Ravi. Though our exports may increase because of fall in rupee value, US imposed tariffs on us, so our exports are decreased. Now, in the both cases, our exports are reduced, ma'am. Hey, US wanted, what is the major problem with US? What is the major issue with US? US में ना India exports a lot to US and imports as compared to the exports, our imports are less. मतलब US के imports are less. That means US was importing more than exporting. This led to a deficit, a trade deficit in US. So US wanted to correct this trade deficit. US wanted to correct this trade deficit. That is why it imposed tariffs. Ki now, if India wants to export things to US, they'll be at a higher rate. है ना? So when we send our exports to US, people are not going to buy because now it is at a higher rate. It is available at a higher rate. So why did US do it? Is because why did US impose tariffs? Is in order to reduce the exports from India. Is it clear, Sureka? Yes. So though our exports may increase because of fall in rupee value, that it is depreciating, but our exports might increase. But US has imposed tariffs on us, so our exports are decreased. So now the net effect is that our exports have not yet increased. That is why what has India done? India has tried to diversify. What has India done? It has tried to diversify its exports. It is now exporting to other countries like the Middle East or Europe, है ना? So that is the thing over here. I hope this is clear. The concept of appreciation, depreciation, devaluation, revaluation. ठीक है? Then this is again a fact-based news only. Tarun Garg is the new MD and CEO of Hyundai Motor India. Sometimes directly this question can be asked in the examination. That who is the newly appointed CEO and MD of Hyundai Motor? पहले who was the CEO and MD? Unsu Kim. Now it is Tarun Garg. ठीक है? Fine. First time an Indian national is heading Hyundai Motor India Limited. So they can frame this question in this manner. ठीक है कि for the first time an Indian national is heading the Hyundai Motor India Limited. Who is this? Who is that? है ना? And what is this? Hyundai is the Indian arm of South Korean auto major Hyundai Motor Company. Fine. Then the 21st nation to adopt euro is Bulgaria. This is also important over here. Again, this is also fact-based news. ठीक है? Until now 20 nations had adopted the euro, but now Bulgaria has also adopted it. ठीक है, fine. I read in an article that RBI is deliberately letting the rupee slide to balance out the trade tariffs. Is it true? Because I see RBI could have heavily dumped dollars to keep rupee. Yes, exactly. Yes, you're absolutely right. Now, in order to control depreciation of currency, how does RBI manage it? Abhi, what does depreciation mean? That rupee value is declining. That means there is excess of rupee in the economy and dollar is less. So, how could RBI control depreciation? It is going to, absorb. It is going to absorb rupees. It is going to absorb rupees and release dollars in the economy. It is going to release dollars in the economy and absorb the rupees. ऐसे swaps कर forex swaps कर सकते हैं ना. What it will do? It will take money from the economy, rupees from the economy, and inject dollars in the economy. उससे क्या होगा? That our value of rupee will not decline that much. है ना? So RBI could have done this, and RBI does this also to defend the rupee. RBI is definitely doing this. It is defending the rupee, but it is not going to do it immensely or completely. Why? Because little bit of depreciation is fine to increase our exports. Now we are not able to export to the US. Yes, we are not able to export that much. So we are diverting this to other countries like UAE and all, and Australia, UAE. We are conducting free trade agreements and all. ठीक है? I read in an. I hope this is clear, Six Sense. I hope this is clear. So yes, RBI is trying to balance out these tariffs. It is you can say that yes, it is letting the rupee slide against the dollar. Why? So that our exports can increase despite the tariffs which have been put by US. Got it? Why is the CEO's name important and Hyundai important here, or are such news important in general? No, Jaya. Sometimes in your general awareness portion, in your phase 1 examination, your GA, they can directly ask you the CEO and MD. They can directly ask you in your fact based kind of general awareness way. Such kind of questions are asked. Okay, Jaya? Not exactly important related to ESI or finance and management, but in your general awareness portion, such kind of questions can be asked. है ना? Such kind of fact based. That is why you don't have to do it in detail, you just need to know the name. Tarun Garg. ठीक है? Fine, is it clear, Jaya? Then we have the next news article over here. Yes, it is. Yes, Ravi, it is important because of the first Indian national who is heading Hyundai Motor. And sometimes directly in your exam, such kind of questions can be asked. In your general awareness portion, GA part, your questions are asked. Okay? Then Russian oil discount doubles for Indian refiners since October. Ab dekho, the Western countries like the US, they have put sanctions on Russia because of the Russia-Ukraine conflict and all. Sanctions have been imposed on Russia, on Russian companies, that if any of the countries buy from these Russian companies, then we are going to see the wrath of US. So sanctions have been imposed by US. Since these sanctions have been imposed, Russia has increased huge amount of discounts, especially for India. India and Russia are all-weather friends. Russia is our all-weather friend. So Russia has put in a lot of discount, and we took a lot of advantage of these discounts, and we started filling up our strategic petroleum reserves. What are strategic petroleum reserves? What are strategic petroleum reserves? These are the reserves that we have maintained underground for emergency purposes and all. We should have oil stored in these reserves. Okay? So these are strategic petroleum reserves. So Russia has given us very discounted fuel over here, discounted crude oil over here, which has really benefited us. We have imported a lot of crude oil. Okay, we have imported a lot of crude oil, and now Russia has increased. It has doubled since October because of these क्या बोलते sanctions and all, है ना? Discount widened from about 2 to 4 per barrel to 6 to 8 per barrel. You can see इतना heavy discount, double the discount. ठीक है? Russia remains India's largest crude oil supplier even now. है ना? And why discount? Why Russia is discounting? Because of oversupply of Russian crude oil, limited buyer options. People are not buying from Russia, and plus there is high bargaining power of the Indian refiners. So some companies have been sanctioned by US, some companies have not been sanctioned. So जो unsanctioned companies है, via those companies a lot of oil is being exported. ठीक है, and these lower crude oil है ना, this is going to really reduce our India's import bill by approximately 13,000 crores. That is why this is very important. So Russia has rerouted the crude exports from Europe to Asia majorly. So Asia में it is supplying supplying crude oil at a very very low price. ठीक है, fine. Why discounts are increasing? Because nobody is buying Russian crude oil because of Western sanctions, है ना? And because of this really help us in securing our energy, or you can say the because of this fuel, our energy is going to be secured. It is going to improve our current account fiscal balances also, because it is going to reduce our import bill. है ना? Refiners are going to benefit because they will be able to have high margins left with them. ठीक है? So that is what the news was about. Then we have this data recap of the previous week. You know, whenever you read this newspaper, do read these, okay? Let's quickly read it. BSE Sensex delivered 9% return, so we saw that there was an increase in the stock market performance despite the global shock. So stock market was performing well. If I talk about industrial output, it grew 6.7% year on year in November. So industrial output increased. It was the fastest pace. We have obviously all of these things we have already done in the previous live mint analysis. This is just a data recap. Manufacturing output grew 8% in November. So manufacturing output grew here, है ना? Up from 1.9% in October. Indian exports to Australia increased. They are set to increase because of their agreement. ECTA, they have signed an agreement. We are going to read all of these in the charts, don't worry. This is just briefly, है ना? US share in humanitarian trade has decreased. So the aid that they provide US, it has decreased. Lowest in 26 years. Banking fraud has increased to 34,771 crore in financial year 25. So frauds have increased a lot. Can you say that, because of digital things and all, because of that digital banking and all, that is why frauds have increased? So yes. Okay, so you can see a Sensex surge. The Indian stock market remained resilient in 2025 despite several external risks like US tariffs. So our stock market performance was good. Okay, so industrial output we have seen a growth. Production rose 6.7% during the month, which is highest. So industrial output increased. Giving you a homework over here, please read about index of industrial production. Very important from your exam point of view. This is your homework. Duty free access. India and Australia, they have signed an agreement known as Economic Cooperation and Trade Agreement. Economic Cooperation and Trade Agreement, ECTA, is the agreement which has been signed between India and Australia. And Indian exporters, they are going to enjoy duty free entry into Australian markets. So without any tariffs, we will be able to sell our products in Australia on all products, all types of products. ठीक है? Then frauds have increased, financial frauds have increased. It rose to 30.8%. Sometimes in your MCQ type of questions, this data can directly be asked. So please learn this data. Okay? How much has the financial fraud cases increased? 30.8% in financial year 25 to 34,771 crore. Amount has risen despite a 33.8% decline in number of reported cases. Reported cases have declined, but still we are seeing an increase in the financial fraud cases. Apart from that, we have this US pullback, that US has reduced the humanitarian aid which it used to provide, because it is saying कि भाई everybody should share the burden, why only us? ठीक है? So US President Donald Trump, जब से he has come to power again, he has criticized the foreign funding programs of US, and that is why US has reduced this now. ठीक है? Reduced the foreign humanitarian aid. Clear, everyone? I hope that all of these things are clear to you. If you want to connect with me beyond these sessions, you can connect with me on Telegram. Mannat Educator is my Telegram handle. I will share the PDF over here on Telegram. Is everything clear to everyone? Please let me know in the comment section. We are going to do a few MCQs over here for practice purpose. Let me see whether you guys have understood or not. Then I'm going to end the session over here. Okay? First question. Consider the following statements. Which of these are correct? Regarding government capital expenditure. Capital expenditure directly adds to an economy's productive capacity. Is that so? Government capital expenditure can help crowd in private investment by improving infrastructure. Persistent reliance on public capital expenditure has no implications for fiscal sustainability. A and B, A and C, what is the correct answer? A, B, C, D, E. What is the correct answer for this particular question? First question. What is the answer? Haji, what is the answer for first question? Bhakti is saying first D. Okay. Anybody else? Yes, Ravi. Just try to, when you download the PDF now, you don't have to obviously start reading everything. Just do the important portions that I've told you. The just quickly revise the concepts that I have helped you understand. Okay, concepts plus the major news. Just try to recall it. Okay, just that. Okay. What is the answer? All of you are saying D. Somebody saying E also, A also. The correct answer is D over here. Why now? If you see a first statement, capital expenditure directly adds to an economy's productive capacity. Absolutely correct. Why? Because capital expenditure is productive expenditure. It is productive expenditure. Second state, so first statement is correct. Government capex can help crowd in private investment by improving infrastructure. Absolutely correct. अब क्या कह रहे हैं? What did I explain you? Crowd in मतलब when because of government expansion, private investment increases. That is what is known as crowding in, and crowding out is when because of government expansion, private sector investment reduces. है ना? So when can this government expenditure lead to crowd in of investment? When this expenditure is going to help the private sector in increasing the investment. Maybe government is improving roads, highways and all. Government is increasing the infrastructure, which is helping out, reducing the costs, which is reducing cost for the private sector, and then private sector investment can increase. Private sector investment can increase in that case. So second statement is also correct. I hope this is clear. Government capital expenditure can help crowd in investment. When can it help in crowding in investment? Private investment by improving the infrastructure. Otherwise, it is going to crowd out private investment. I hope this is clear. फिर तीसरा स्टेटमेंट है persistent reliance on public capital expenditure has no implications. क्यों नहीं है implications? बहुत ज़्यादा if expenditure has increased, expenditure will be greater than revenue, greater than the revenue. This is going to create a deficit. So of course it has implications for fiscal sustainability. Is it clear, everyone? All those who gave me E as the answer or A as the answer, is this clear why A and B is the correct answer? ठीक है. Next question number 2. Consider the following statements regarding the quality control orders. Quality control orders make compliance with Bureau of Indian Standards mandatory for notified products. Withdrawal of quality control orders automatically implies dilution of consumer safety norms. WTO scrutiny arises when quality regulations act as disguised non-tariff barriers. Which of these are correct? 1 only, 1 and 3 only, 2 and 3 only, or 1, 2 and 3? What is the answer for this question? Bhakti Singh 1 and 3. Six Sense is saying D, B, B, all correct. Dekho, let's try and understand each point here, okay? First statement is quality control orders make compliance with Bureau of Indian Standards mandatory for notified products. Absolutely correct. Bureau of Indian Standards is making certain standards. It is, providing certain quality control orders for notified products की जो जो उन्होंने notify कर दिए वहाँ पे you have to maintain the quality control. So first statement is absolutely correct. Withdrawal of quality control orders automatically implies dilution of consumer safety norms. अगर withdraw किए quality control orders, it does not mean कि consumer safety पे सवाल आ गया. No, this is a very extreme statement. This has to be eliminated. जरूरी थोड़ी है कि इसको withdraw किया तो मतलब consumer के लिए against हो गया ये. No, this is absolutely incorrect. Third step, WTO scrutiny arises and quality regulations act as disguised non-tariff barriers. Exactly. Why is WTO scrutiny increased? Because this was creating a non-tariff barrier. है ना? Yes, not automatically, it's a dynamic process. Exactly, Bhakti. And also third statement is correct. So your answer is B, 1 and 3 only. Next, question number 3. Consider the following statements regarding recent PFRDA decision. Scheduled commercial banks will be allowed to sponsor pension funds under NPS. Eligibility criteria for banks will be aligned with RBI prudential norms. All banks will be automatically permitted to set up pension funds. Which of the statements are incorrect? 1 and 2 only, 2 only, 1 and 3 only, or 3 only? Hanji, what is the correct answer? Yes, the incorrect portion is 3 only. See, let's read the question very carefully over here. First statement, scheduled commercial banks will be allowed to sponsor pension funds under NPS. Exactly, this is only the news about, and absolutely correct. Eligibility criteria for banks will be aligned with RBI prudential norms. This is also correct. Okay, based on RBI prudential norms, eligibility criteria will be defined. All banks will be automatically permitted. No, not automatically. Not all banks, only scheduled commercial banks. And not automatically if they meet that 50,000 crore asset under management plus other prudential norms of RBI. And so 3 only is incorrect. Fourth question, consider the following statements which are correct. Lower crude oil prices help in moderating inflation pressures. Discounted crude imports can improve refinery profitability. Heavy reliance on discounted oil fully eliminates external vulnerability. More than one is correct. What is the answer? 1, 2 correct, 3 incorrect. Bhakti is saying D, D. Let's read the question very carefully here now. First statement is lower crude oil prices help in moderating inflationary pressures. बिल्कुल ठीक है. When prices reduce, obviously inflation will be controlled. So first statement is correct. Discounted crude imports can improve refining profitability. Absolutely correct. अब अगर हमें सस्ते imports मिल रहे हैं, then refining will become easy. It'll become profitable. है ना? Our margins will improve. So this is correct. Heavy reliance on discounted oil fully eliminates external vulnerability. अगर हम बहुत ज़्यादा rely करेंगे on discounted oil, it will fully eliminate external vulnerability. No, not fully. इतना extreme statement will obviously be wrong. So more than one is correct. Which one is correct? A and B are correct. And C is incorrect. ठीक है? Okay, assertion reason question. Okay, we have first assertion. India's manufacturing PMI fell in December but remained above its long term average of 54.2. है ना, यही देखा था हमने. Reason, manufacturing activity continued to expand, though at a slower pace. Both A and R are true. R is the correct explanation of A. Both A and R are true, but R is not the correct explanation of A. A true, R false, A false, R true. Yes, fully eliminated superfluous. Exactly. So जो भी जितने भी extreme questions रहेंगे, extreme statements रहेंगे, they have to be eliminated. Okay. Fifth question, what is the correct answer? See, first is India's PMI fell, manufacturing PMI fell in December. We saw, है ना, we saw the lowest pace but remained above its long term average. है ना, above ही है 55 देखा था हमने. From 56.6 it reduced to 55 and long term average is 54.2, so it remained high from 54.2 from the long term average. So A is absolutely correct. Our reason, what is the reason? Manufacturing activity continued to expand though at a slower pace. यही तो देखा था कि rate decreased 56.6 से it became 55. So this rate of expansion reduced. Greater than 50 means expansion only. Only the rate of expansion has decreased. So both A and R are true and R is the correct explanation of A. So this is going to be the correct answer. ठीक है, not B Sureka. R is the correct explanation कि because manufacturing activity expanded but at a slower pace, that is why PMI fell. ठीक है? Next question. This was your fifth question. Now, sixth question. Consider the following statements. Stagnant cotton yields can affect both farmer incomes and textile sector competitiveness. Second statement. Pest resistance has reduced the effectiveness of earlier BT cotton gains. India's cotton productivity growth has consistently outperformed the global peers. Which of the statements are correct? 1 only, 2 only, 1 and 2 only, 1, 2 and 3. Hanji, what is the correct answer? Question 6, 1 and 2. Bhakti Singh, Ravi Singh, all are correct. Tanishq Singh, D 1, 2, 3 are correct. Anybody else? The correct answer is C. Only Bhakti has given me the correct answer. 1 and 2 only. अब देखो first, stagnant cotton yields can affect both farmer incomes and textile sector competitiveness. Absolutely correct. अगर yields ही अच्छी नहीं होंगी, it is going to impact the textile sector and farmer incomes. है ना? So this is absolutely correct. Second statement. Pest resistance has reduced the effectiveness of earlier BT cotton gains. बिल्कुल ठीक. पहले हम BT cotton कि जो हमने बीटी कॉटन जो बनाया था we are why are we bringing the second part because this pest resistance has reduced the effectiveness of earlier BT cotton gains. ठीक है? So second is also correct. Third, India's cotton productivity growth has consistently outperformed. देखो consistently outperformed. This is also a very extreme statement over here. कंसिस्टेंटली आउटपरफॉर्म्ड. कंसिस्टेंटली मतलब हर साल अच्छे से परफॉर्म किया है. नहीं. हैव यू सीन दिस? ऐसा ग्रोथ देखा है कभी भी? नो. दिस इज आल्सो एक्सट्रीम. सो 1 and 2 only. Consider the following incorrect statements. Next question, seventh question. Incorrect statements regarding GST. I hope this is clear to all of you. पिछले वाला question का answer. Incorrect statements regarding GST. It is a single indirect tax on supply of goods and services across India, introduced by 101st Constitutional Amendment Act 2017 in 55th meeting of GST Council. Next gen GST reforms that include rate rationalization with a simplified two slab structure has been mentioned. All are correct. Question number 7. What is the correct answer? Which is the incorrect statement basically out of these? Which is the incorrect statement out of these? Which is the incorrect statement out of these? Anybody? Seventh question, C. Bhakti is saying. Anybody else? देखो फर्स्ट स्टेटमेंट इट इज अ सिंगल इनडायरेक्ट टैक्स. यही किया है हमने. वी कंसोलिडेटेड द इनडायरेक्ट टैक्सेस टू फॉर्म दिस गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज टैक्स ऑन सप्लाई ऑफ गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज अक्रॉस इंडिया बिकॉज जीएसटी इज अ डेस्टिनेशन बेस्ड टैक्स. दैट मीन्स जहाँ पे मैन्युफैक्चर हुआ है वहां पे नहीं टैक्स लगेगा, बट वेयर इट इज सोल्ड ऑन द सेल, जो सेल वाला जगह है वहां पे द जीएसटी इज गोइंग टू बी पेड. राइट? So first is absolutely correct. Second, it was introduced by 101st Constitutional Amendment Act. Absolutely correct. है ना? यही था. थर्ड स्टेटमेंट तो ऑल आर करेक्ट, तो वैसे ही नहीं सही हो सकता, तो एलिमिनेशन से ही आपका ये सी वाज द incorrect statement कि in 55th meeting approved next gen reforms that includes rate rationalization with simplified two slab structure. ठीक है? So this is the incorrect. हाँ एग्जैक्टली है ना रवि? नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन. अच्छा क्वेश्चन तो हो गए सारे कंप्लीट. फाइन. सो दैट इज ऑल फ्रॉम माय साइड एवरीवन. थैंक यू सो मच टू ऑल ऑफ यू. आई होप दैट एवरीथिंग इज क्लियर. आई होप दैट दिस सेशन वाज हेल्पफुल फॉर ऑल ऑफ यू. This is my Telegram handle. If you want to connect with me, you can connect over here. I will share the PDF of this class in the Telegram group itself, or you can check it out from the Oliveboard app. All right. So if there's anything that you want to ask me, you can ask me in the comment section. Otherwise, we're going to end the session here. Thank you so much to all of you for staying put throughout the session. And I hope that such sessions help you all. I hope you've understood how to link static portion with current portion and how to have a more holistic discussion of the newspaper. Right? Thank you so much, Bhakti. Thank you so much. And wish you all the best, everyone. I will see you all in my next one. Till then, keep studying and all the best. Bye bye.